Good morning with DIY Handyman, Becoming Self-Reliant, another channel we're doing to try to help people understand how we can, in down economy, become self-reliant and do things ourselves. Today we're going to go through and we're going to install slate over an outside porch in a house that was built in the 1970s. Now this concrete's not the best, and so we're going to go through and install slate and show you exactly how you prepare this floor, and so that you can avoid cracks and install slate that's not exactly even like ceramic tile is. So stay with us today. I'm going to teach you how you're going to install this slate and make your house look even more beautiful doing it yourself. All right, look, the first thing we want to do here is I'm going to show you with you a little bit of an example of slate. The slate, you can buy this, it's called gauged or ungaged or semi-gauged, right? You can buy this to where it means it's being cut and it's flat on the back. Now this is being cut as gauged, so when you install, as you lay this into the thinset you make up, the mortar mix, it'll lay perfectly into the bed, right? However, you're gonna wanna use a 3/8 inch notch trowel, not because the bottom is uneven, but the tops are really uneven as far as thickness goes. So it's gonna give you a little bit of ability to push down in certain areas to kind of get that so it's when you grout it up, when you walk over, you're not going to feel such an inconsistency. You want to also, in a slate that's inconsistent like this, open your grout joints up to 1/4 inch to maybe even 1/2 inch. I know it's kind of wide, but this is outdoor, so we can get away with that a little more. We're going to use a darker grout with this, so we're not going to show the dirt either in this outdoor environment. Also, you're going to want to keep with you a little dust brush, because you're going to want to always keep yourself clean of what we had to do to prepare this patio area that was cracked and breaking apart, and actually had some exposed aggregate there before, like the rock showing it. We had to level all that off beforehand. We did that a day before, let that dry, then we came in and we slip sheeted it. Slip sheeting is a sheet that goes on over the top of the concrete. Then you're going to install this on top of the slip sheet, so if concrete cracks, it slips underneath the sheet and doesn't pull this. So it's important. We'll show you that in a minute. You don't want your knee pads because you're going to be on your knees. Don't think because you're young you can get away with it. It'll catch up to you. You want a square, because you're going to want to square things off here. We're not going to go through that part. I'm going to show you more of the installation part. Long edges, if you don't have the edges, you can get wood. If you have long wood, as long as it's straight, like a 2x4 or something, or even something that's going to be long and straight that you can use. 4-foot level works too, but in this sense here, follow me over here. In this sense here, this area, we want to connect these two different porches that were poured at different times. We had different levels here, so we had to come in and kind of level this off first, let this dry, fill all this exposed aggregate with thinset itself and a self-leveling concrete. Well, we just made up some sand and cement, a good thick mix, and we put this in here, blend it together, but we want to wet it down first before you do that, so that when you stick it and it's very thin, the concrete sucks and absorbs, okay? Then we came in with a slip sheet. Now, if you buy a slip sheet, it's really expensive. So here's what we did. You buy vinyl, a cheap vinyl. We paid like 70 cents, 79 cents a square foot for this vinyl. You flip it upside down. You put it upside down. You clean off your slab, very good, real clean. Wet it down so there's no dust. And then you pour regular multi-purpose, like a vinyl adhesive, like a mastic if you would, because it's elastomeric. If I was to go down and stick this down with a thinset mortar and the concrete moves underneath, it's going to pull the tile with it. But if it's something that's elastomeric that will move, that will allow expansion like a mastic would be or a vinyl adhesive would, then that's going to be better off for you in the long term. Now you can put this right over the concrete if you want. If the concrete cracks and it cracks wide enough, it's going to crack your slate with it, or to come up in joints, and you'll see that. So this is to be long term and last us 50, 80, 100 years down the road if this house lasts that long. So let's go through. I'm going to show you basically install. We just squared this off. We had to make sure when we squared this off here that we were coming out to this edge, but not too far over the edge. If I'm too far over that edge, what's going to happen when I'm done? Somebody walks, and over time, it's going to break that edge off, right? So I want to be out just to my edge, and I'll make sure I can backfill that with grout so that fills in. Now this will all get landscaped and filled with gravel again out here in this driveway. We're in the mountains at a cabin. So you want to square it off here. Make sure you're going to come straight on this run That's going to be my main focal point, as well as this part right here is going to also be another main focal point. So come over here with me. You're going to see here, I got a phone call, but it can wait. You're going to see here that we also have this long wall, okay? Now the problem with the long wall is when people come in, you're going to be able to see that run, okay? So you don't want to be, you want to make sure you're straight coming this way, right along that edge. That's really important along that edge. And this long wall, we're going to actually cut it in. We're going to start full out there. We cut it in about a half of a tile here. That means I can run that, if it's out of square, I can run that and taper that and hide that in there against that wall where it won't be seen so much. Okay? So we're going to go ahead now and start installing. What we had to do is when you lay this thinset, when you lay this mastic down, you want to actually roll over this with a heavy roller. Now, if you don't have one of these, we have one of these because we're contractors, right? So we have one, but if you don't have one of these, and most you're not going to have one of these laying around the house, you can go through and just let this set for a day or two so the gases release and come out of it. You may even want to cut it with a knife where you have some pockets sticking up, right? Some areas with pockets sticking up. And you can then cut down the knife and go over it and try to flatten out as much as you can so that when you put the thinset over this, you're going to want to wipe it down really good so you got a good stick. Now I'm going to use an acrylic additive in my thinset mortar. I'm just using regular gray thinset. It costs $9 a bag. I can buy it at Lowe's or Home Depot. You can buy the acrylic mortar, the acrylic additive as well, and that helps bond better and will help this stick to this, and so it doesn't come up over time, right? So let's go ahead now and we'll do our mix with our thinset mortar and our acrylic additive. We're going to probably go about 3/4 water, just 1/4 of acrylic additive into our thinset mix. And I'm only going to mix really about 3/4 of a 5-gallon bucket of thinset to start off with. The reason I'm mixing that much is because I got a 3/8 inch notch trowel. It's kind of thick. And I'll go through that really quick here, being that I'm a contractor and I have the experience. Now you might want to mix a little less than that, maybe half a bucket. And you can start it with until you get a feel of it. Because once your thinset starts to dry up on you and trying to loosen that up again, it's not good. It doesn't bond as well. So when you mix your thinset, you mix it, let it sit for about 5 minutes. Then mix it again, and then don't mix it after that. The more you mix it after that, the less bond it really has, okay? So you want to use what you can use without having to remix it again in an hour or so, all right? So let's go through now. I'm going to start setting this, and we'll show you a little as we go through this, setting it, and then the last result will be in grouting this in slate. It's a little more difficult to grout because it's very porous, and your grout's going to catch. So what do we do to keep our grout from catching and keep our slate clean and grout in our joint afterwards? You got to be a little more careful than doing regular ceramic tile. All right, so let's go through now and let's install this and let's grout this up so you can do this yourself at home. Now, why are we helping you do this at home? You can buy this slate at Home Depot. It cost me maybe, I think we paid like $2.25, if I'm not mistaken. $2.25 at Home Depot. No, Lowe's about that. It's like I said, it's flat on the bottom, so that's good. I got it gauged here, or semi-gauged. At the top, it's a little more rustic. I mean, you got little thickness differences, but the thinset mortar, buy at Lowe's, Home Depot as well. The acrylic, you can buy this as well. The vinyl, the mastic, you stick it down. What we used for the cement was like $5 for a bag. We bought the sand there too, mixed that up to level this off and to get this floor ready to put the vinyl over the slip sheeting. So all this you can do at Lowe's. We're talking about, we're going to do this whole job. It's about a $4,000 job. We're going to do this whole job for less than $1,000 doing it ourselves. So that's where you can save a lot of money. Save 75% on this. So let's go through this install now. Now our thinset's made up, or mortar. I'm using a gray thinset, it's a floor thinset. It's a cheap one too, about $9 a bag. Got my water, I'm going to wipe down. I got my straight edge laid on my line I drew when I squared this off, right? Now I put tile, I put slate down in that end to keep my straight edge from moving. Though I'm on my knees here on the straight edge, it can move down there and throw me off. And that line from people sitting out there in the new deck that's going to come in, they'll see it's going to be thrown off and won't be straight. So you want to make sure that you ever sit on a toilet in a bathroom, look down the grout lines, you can see if they laid out good or didn't lay out good. That's a problem that a lot of contractors have. So we're going to go ahead and start installing now. We'll kind of run through this, show you the installation. The wiping down is just a simple wipe down. That's all it is. Doesn't have to be major scrub, not real wet either, because you're going to go thinset right over it. And then you're going to want to pour your thinset at about, what am I doing now? I'm just picking up any dust particles so that this will get a better bond. Where they're going to go over straight concrete, even more important to do this. Your straight thinset, 3/4 inch, a 3/8 inch notch for this particular slate because it's kind of flat on the bottom, right? They call it gauged. What I'm going to do now is just going to pour my thin set. I made about 3/4 of a bucket. I'm just going to pour it, and I'll show you about how to put the thin set on. That's probably a challenge a lot of people have. And I'm going to put out enough thin set to run about 4 rows. So I'm going to run this thin set and try not to get the thin set on your straight edge because otherwise that'll kick your tile off. So you come up to it and you bring it out, but you want to get it right up to it without getting it on there, right? Very important. Make sure your edges have got thin set so you get a good stick. You don't get a hollow sound afterwards when you walk on it or if somebody drops a coin or something on it, right? So you want to just kind of make sure that the thin set's spread well. I take it all the way out to my edge here. That's how we laid it out. We're going to have a little bit overhang because this porch is not exactly square. So we're going to have a little bit of overhang here that we'll come back and chisel off after the fact. So we can chisel it right up to the tile, or the slate in this case. And then put grout in there. All right? So I want thick here. We can come back and wipe it down. It's really important to wipe it down as you go. Keep your trowel. I keep it at about a 45-degree angle when I'm moving it, so I keep my ridges, okay? Now, I'm going to go ahead. Make sure my ridges are all even. I don't want clumps, okay? Really important. All right, very good. Now, what I'll do is I'll start installing. So if you want to stay with me right now then, we'll go through. We want to make sure our color variation, my helper, he went through this, who's my son. In this case, I'm not paying for a helper. I think my son might be charging me at the end of the day though, so we'll see. But anyway, you go through, you got different shades of colors. So you want to go through and mix and match them. You don't want to run about reds, grays, try to keep them spread out, right? That way, when you get to the end, you go through all your boxes first. You lay them all out, your colors. That way, when you get to the end, you're not just with one clump of colors. So let's go ahead and start this. My corner here is not exactly as full as I want it to be. There we go. Now I'm going to put this in without pushing it in the thin set first. It's going to go up against my edge first and drop in. I'm not going to push. I'm not going to do much at all to it right now. I bring it up to my edge. This is going to get a wood deck in here afterwards. So then I'm going to come here. I'm going to run this run first, about 3 or 4 rows. I'm going to spread this out so that now I can push around a little bit because I'm a little bit thicker here and a little thinner here. So I can push this down, bring this up. I'm going to leave this about a 1/2 inch grout joint. So when I grout this, you won't quite see the difference in the undulations for the slate. Now you got to be careful. You got some chipped corners. You don't want those. You want your helper to go through that, or you go through that. And make sure you don't have any of those when you're running them. Okay? Very important. Now you can see we got a sizing difference here too. I don't know if you can see that or not in the camera, but this slate is off. It's a stone. It's a natural stone. So you got a sizing difference as well as a height difference. So you just kind of want to move that off your edge a little bit and just kind of find a happy medium with it. You're going to have a lot of those that way. So don't stress over it. That's just a natural stone look, and that's how it comes out. So if I'm thicker, I'm pushing down. Now let's go back through, unrun this now. I'm not doing this with spacers because it's natural stone. I would recommend spacers though. If you're doing this at home for your first time, I'd recommend spacers. My eyes I'm old, but I still got the sight from years of being in the business. Like I said, this is about close to a $4,000 job that you can do for about $1,000, and that's buying your own tools and everything to do it. Renting a saw, it might be about $1,100 when you rent a tile saw. You can rent tile saws a lot of times at Home Depot or Lowe's as well. You want to make sure you're nice and square here. I got size differences, but that's why I'm going to open these grout joints up. So the size differences here, you can hide that when you come back and grout it. Okay? Keep everything clean here. So this is basically your install. I got a huge height difference here. So I got a huge height difference here, so I can do one of two things. I can leave that and bevel that with grout, or I can pick this back up again and lift this end up by buttering it on the back. I'll show you what I mean by that. That's why I always keep a margin trowel with me as well. You use a marble, you can just suction cup, and with the marble it's easier. But what I want to do here is I'm going to come over and let's pick this up. Let's go ahead and pick this one up now. You want to be careful not to push your thin set back up against the other one. So you can see in here also that I got a bit of a belly here. You see, I have full coverage, right? But I got a little bit of a belly there, so I'm going to want to butter that. And that's probably why I'm sticking up. I might have a lump in the concrete that I wasn't able to get out when we flowed it. So I'm going to take my high spot, which is going to be in here. Actually, I want to pick this up in here and butter the back of this, making sure that I got a good bond. And coming back into this. So we pick it up a little better, so it's not quite so bad now. If I pick it up too much, I'm going to get a hollow center, right? So you want to be careful of that. So basically that's what we're going to do. We're just going to keep installing this way. And we'll get with you as we move along, and just make sure your joints are good. You can come back and look down here, but if you go off your straight edge, you should be pretty good. And that'll give you a good professional look for 25% of the cost. So we'll continue on and we'll get back and do a review at the end. So we've passed about 3.5, 4 hours. We stopped for break, lunch, and did a few other videos while we were doing this. We're coming out to the tail end. You can see this patio here has a lot of humps in it. So we had to pick things up, put them in, pick them up, butter them down the corners. What you don't want to do is you don't want anything sticking up that's not actually have thin set to it, the mortar, right? Otherwise later when you step on it, it'll pop and snap. This is slate, porcelain, you probably get away with it, but you always want to make sure you got a feel underneath, right? So basically this is how the slate goes in. We're going to finish that out now, and we'll just show you the finished product when we're done, just kind of panorama, or pan over it, I guess. And then we'll come back and grout it tomorrow. We'll let it sit overnight and grout it. If you get back on it now to grout it, you could break the bond on the thin set mortar and you get a hollow sound and it'll come loose later. So best bet, let it go overnight. This job will take us about, today I think with us making videos, stuff to take about 5.5 to 6 hours total when we get all done and clean up here. But you could do this in 1 day if it took you 2 days. It's going to save you $3,000. So, I mean, when you can DIY, do it yourself, why not? And it's a fun experience. So if you like this video, please subscribe. We're going to have a lot more come out with different things you can do in construction around your home. As we're remodeling this home here, we're going to teach you things that we know as professionals, things how you can do it so you can do it yourself and be self-sufficient. So we'll talk to you in the next video. We'll do a pan over when we're done, and we'll talk to you soon.